Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us on this webinar series. This is the third of the series that has been delivered by Adara Foundation. It's a pleasure to have you join us this afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about Adara Foundation, why we're doing this, and then I'll introduce the very formidable speakers that we have with us this afternoon. And we're in for some very thought-provoking and informative and inspiring conversation. So Adara Foundation was founded by myself in 2016. And my vision at the time was to put my own contribution towards enabling women in particular and you to contribute to the socioeconomic development of Nigeria. At that time, I understood the importance of SMEs and the micro small businesses in Nigeria. And I wanted to galvanize whatever resources I could to support training and development through things, the kind of training and development that we've delivered to over 13,000 beneficiaries year to date is skills training, entrepreneurship training, education promotion, and collaborations with institutions like Oxford University, financial education, and market access opportunities. Particularly in fashion so far. We've collaborated with a number of designers to that regard. Coming into 2020, and before then, we used to focus much more on very, very low income sector of the economy because we realized that that's the area that is harder for people to engage in. Coming forward now to 2020 and looking at the global pandemics, crises, riots, etc., that's happening, is becoming increasingly clear that the role that SMEs have to play in galvanizing Nigeria and Africa's socioeconomic development can never be underestimated. I actually think that SMEs are the ones that are going to lift us out of the current global-wide recession that we're in and help us. And why do I say that? I say that because the oil price reduction is real. And let me put this into perspective just so that we all have this in numbers. Typically and more recent, so over the last 20 years, the Nigerian government has earned about $1.5 trillion in revenues. This year, and over the last recent years, it's averaged about 100 billion in revenues from oil. This year is going to go down to about 50 billion. Some of the cost and infrastructure that we have is not going to change. So the reality is one of the main sources of money from the country, which is the federal government, now just has less money. What we do have is the same amount of human capital. What we do have is the same amount of market opportunities, different, sometimes more challenging, but they're there. What we do have is some of the talent and international opportunities and collaboration that really means that we all have to think very, very differently about how we operate going forward. And I really do think that SMEs will lead the charge in that. So because of that, we started a wide range of initiatives, one of which is the webinars that we're doing. The objective of the webinars is really to get people to think differently, to engage differently, and to really, really think about how we together, collaborating with the government and the private sector, locally and internationally, can drive change and help economic empowerment. So today, this particular panel is focusing primarily on spotlighting manufacturing, importantly, spotlighting export. And also spotlighting fashion in particular. So we've picked up areas that people don't regularly think about. They just certainly don't think about the opportunity sets within that space. And what have we done? We've brought together leaders in these sectors in our country, Nigeria, who have done a lot and are thinking about how they can contribute a lot to these sectors. And what we want to do is engage in conversation with them today. It's for the SMEs, and we hope that we'll have a good conversation with you. It's really my pleasure to have on this panel today, Mr. Segun Awolowo. I will introduce all of them briefly, but I'll just name them for now. And we also have Omoyemi Akerele, And we also have Ifeyinwa Ighodalo, and we have Odio Oseni. And it's my pleasure now just to speak a bit more about these particular participants. So I'm going to start with Mr. Segun Awolowo, who is currently the Director General of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. And this is a council, this is an organization that is the primary organization within government that seeks to diversify Nigeria's economy through exports. And he's also a member of the WTO board and has led a lot of initiatives to deliver exports outside of Nigeria. We also then have Ms. Omoyemi Akerele, who in her own case has looked at the fashion ecosystem and has looked at how to take the fashion industry, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa, and project it internationally and to engage within Nigeria, across Africa and internationally. There are a number of initiatives where she has described herself, too many to mention, but she's taken a very strong and pivotal role in taking African fashion and putting it in center stage, whilst helping a lot of fashion designers and people along the ecosystem generate a lot of revenues. We also then have Mrs. Ifeyinwa Ighodalo, the founder of DO.II. I smile because I sometimes get the name wrong. She has a long journey and lots of different things. She's also the chairman of WIMBIZ, the current chairman of WIMBIZ. People know her to be an interior decorator, interior designer, probably. What they don't know is the extent that she has contributed in a very resilient way to building the interior design space in Nigeria, and also manufacturing most of the furniture that we see in her beautiful stores. This session this week, this time is actually going to be quite visual. We're going to show you pictures to help with people seeing how far we can go. It's a pleasure to have her here as well. And last but by no means least, we have Odio Oseni, who's the creative director and founder of Odio Mimonet. By far one of the leading fashion design houses in Nigeria, has an excellent record of delivering the most creative designs, which have found their way to different corners of the globe. Again, like Mrs. Ighodalo, a leader in her own space, she does more than just deliver fashion, and we're going to hear a lot more about that today. What is going to be very interesting about this conversation is we're going to hear about their journeys. We're also going to hear about the fact how they see business today and how they're managing themselves through this crisis, and where they see the opportunities and challenges, and also what advice that they have for you today. So it's going to be quite an interesting experience. I'm going to start off now with the first poll of the day, and then we'll go into the first presentation by Mr. Segun Awolowo. So we're going to give about a minute to this poll. And what we're trying to do with this is just to gauge from here what sectors are participating on this particular webinar, so that we can continue to finesse the answers and conversation in line with who we have on board with us today. The numbers are still coming in. Okay, so I think it's going to be, it's now starting to fall in line, and I think we'll be pretty much largely in shape. 48% of the people on this call today operate in the fashion sector. We have in the next group is other, which is about 30%. And I'm not surprised to see the other two numbers. In manufacturing, we have 15%, and that's really reflective of the fact that there's just too few people in manufacturing. And part of what we want to do with this call today is really encourage more people to take the kind of bold steps that DO.II have taken to go into the manufacturing space. Export is 4%, and that does show in our revenue numbers today. And so I hope that having engaged with Mr. Awolowo in this session, we'll all have much clearer ideas on why we should all be thinking about exports, regardless of our stage in the journey. At this stage, we're going to hand over to Mr. Segun Awolowo. Thank you very much.
Hi, Yvonne. I'm so pleased to see everybody. Let me say a big shout out to all fellow panelists as well. Yvonne, let me thank you for first what your foundation is doing on empowering women for self-actualization and advancing the education also in Africa. Many people don't know that you also sponsor a scholarship at the University of Oxford open to female candidates. So I want to congratulate you very much for what you're doing, particularly for women entrepreneurs in the country. Let me share my screen so you can see my presentation. I'll do that now. Share screen.
Perfect, thank you.
Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay.
Just need to open up the screen a bit.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so let me start by telling you, I have this quote I always use. It goes, 85% of jobs that will exist in 2030 have not been invented yet. That's from the Institute for the Future. And it just tells you tradition is really history. And we can't go on doing things like we used to do and thinking that we will survive. The crash in oil prices, as Yvonne has alluded to, is this was something that started again recently, 2015. Revenue losses in 2015 was to the tune of about $30 billion, Yvonne. And that was really something. And of course, we went into a recession. Now, really, the truth of it is that we are only earning foreign exchange from oil. Oil gives us 90% of our foreign exchange, which is crazy because the kind of economy we're on. Yvonne, you said it in your introduction. Look, Nigeria, informal trade is what is keeping Nigeria alive, and not the oil prices. Well, we look at this COVID-19 and we see the challenges that it has raised, you know, for many of our SMEs, MSMEs, supply chains for fashion, manufacturing and retail businesses. They're all, you know, because of the lockdown, many problems, order cancellation, shortage supply of inputs and raw materials, you know, restricted transport modalities along the global value chains. They've all undermined production, and many of the factories really have been brought to a standstill, apart from the work from home and closure of schools that has also happened to affect many of our women. We went on and we administered a survey to gain input from our MSMEs. Based on this, we have made a number of recommendations to the federal government to ease the burden of some of our non-oil exporters during this crisis. Some of them that are put on the screen are, the very important one that exporters screamed about was a foreign exchange window with the prevailing foreign exchange rate. You can't just restrict them to selling on that official rate where they can sell it outside for higher. Special clearance for export at ports, the acceleration of the export expansion grants. I'll talk on that much later. And we are waiver of port levies for export, more tax holidays for non-oil exporters. We have opened the NACO shed, so we're able to move perishable and non-perishable food stuff, you know, by cargo. And this has come really big for us now. It was an opportunity that happened during this COVID crisis. Again, NAFDAC has also helped us in fast-tracking registration and waiver of renewal and registration fees for exporters. We will continue to support MSMEs even after the pandemic. Some of the things we do is promoting women businesses with the she trades. We ensure facilitating business-to-business meetings for those so they can tap into global value chains. We will continue to support partnerships with financial institutions and commercial banks so we can get lower interest rates and extended payback periods for many of our SMEs. We'll continue to facilitate. We're doing a lot of certification trainings for many of our SMEs, particularly those in the food industry, where the certification is really necessary before they can export. And we continue to facilitate in promotion of exporters in our trade and virtual fairs. Because of this COVID, of course, the Expo 2020 in Dubai has been postponed to next year. We're really working and looking forward to that to promote us. And we also, the Inter-African Trade Fair that was to be in Kigali has also been postponed. Now, we see that many of Nigerian businesses, MSMEs, are among the top sellers in Africa on social media platforms. In fact, they dominate social media platforms. So e-commerce has increased in importance. And just last month, we announced a partnership with UPS, Universal Postal Service, to support Nigerian SMEs with very competitive rates for logistics, air freighting, for trade fairs, and also assist them with warehousing, which is really important. That means you have access to all warehouses UPS has all over the world. And they will help you, once we give you the code sign, they will help, like fashion designers now, you can send your goods directly to your customers through UPS. So this is one of the points we're making. We're still running the African Growth Opportunity Act, which provides certain goods, 6,500 really listed goods for duty-free entry into the US. And we want to promote that more so people are aware of it, because we found out that many people don't even know it exists, so they still go on and pay duty. And when you know about trade, nobody hides from, nobody will resist a payment. Under the AGOA Trade Resource Center, we are doing a lot of dissemination of information to business communities. We have done some 27 trainings and workshops, all in the last 1 year, on procedures documentation. And 2 years ago, we succeeded in getting the US Customs to utilize the textile and apparel visa stamps, because without this stamp, you can't take your goods duty-free into the US. So over 700 people have been trained across the food, textile, apparel, leather, and arts and crafts for this. We have a AGOA Human Capital Development Center, and I will leave our partner is Style House Files, run by Omoyemi Akerele, and she will.
So let's all disconnect.
Pardon? She will talk more on that. Also, I want SMEs to really be prepared for the AFC FTA. It's here. Nigeria signed on to it. Because of the COVID, there's a delay. But by next year, I think January next year, it's a market of 1.2 billion people, a GDP of 3 trillion. It's huge potential for Nigeria to increase its exports to Africa. Because unlike Europe and America, where the standards are really high, it's just taking your goods next door. We're working now on the establishment of an export trade house on the continent. The first one, it's going to be in Lomé, in Togo. And it will become a permanent avenue where our manufactured goods can be available and marketed to the African market. Again, I will take that in questions, but there are many innovations, incentives that are coming up now. The Vice President is going to be, as chairman of the Economics on a Sustainability Committee, which we were a member of, is going to be announcing many of these incentives for MSMEs, women-owned businesses, very soon. I'm excited about it. It's many of the proposals we put in front for them, namely is also the Export Development Fund, which is a fund targeted at MSMEs, SMEs, and it's also in form of a grant. So we're going to be helping you with your businesses. Needless to say, Made in Nigeria is real, and we know we'll bounce back from this pandemic. Just a few of Made in Nigeria products that are trending now. I know Omoyemi and Odio will say, why are they not on my list? But because I knew you were participants, so I didn't want to be biased. So thank you very much. I look forward to engaging you with a question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very enlightening presentation. One of the things I wanted to just share with us as we think through and talk through this webinar. The statistics say that through these crises, the pandemic, oil price, lockdown, etc., that in Africa we stand to lose 450 million jobs. 300 million of them will be in the informal sector, i.e. the sector that you SMEs control. So it's so important that we embrace some of the, and the reality is everything that we were doing before, we all have to question. So I do really believe that export opportunities for people, it looks harder than it really is, but now, especially under Mr. Awolowo's guidance at the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, it's very, very pro-private sector. It's very, very pro-progress. And just to recap on some of the things he said, I love the fact that they support women's businesses. There's she trades there. There are the business-to-business meetings with local and international parties. I must recap on AGOA. AGOA is such an important thing for people thinking about exporting into Africa. And there's a lot of support that's available for that. And then the Export Development Fund. It's just to remind us that the government does not have money to give handouts. What they do have is a lot of institutions like the Nigerian Export Promotion Council that can help us build the kind of businesses that Nigerians are absolutely capable of doing. Next on, I'm going to ask Mrs. Ighodalo to talk us about how, give us an overview of what Design Options does and talk us through her journey. She's been a leader in this industry for over 30 years and it's quite formidable what she's managed to achieve so far. We have a video first, because as I said, this session is really quite visual. So we'll start off with a video that starts to describe her business, and then she will talk us through her journey in it. So Mrs. Ighodalo, thank you very much for joining us today.
I have always had a keen eye for beauty, a flair for creativity, and a long-standing passion for beautifully designed spaces. This is what initially led me down the path of interior design. I started my journey by co-founding Design Options, and over the next 25 years, that company and its vision grew to tremendous heights. In 2012, we rebranded and birthed what you all know and identify today as DO.II Designs. Situated on the high street of Victoria Island in Lagos, you will experience 4 spacious floors of over 1,300 square meters. That is DO.II, the only one-stop shop for all your interior needs and the first of its kind in Lagos. At DO.II Designs, our focus on interior design and beautifully manufactured furniture drives the company's mission of transforming lives by beautifying the spaces in which people can live and work better, while supporting and promoting the Made in Nigeria vision. We have always placed great value on ethics, integrity, and caring, and this is backed by a strong culture and a great passion for creativity. Our clients' imagination is at the core of our design concepts, and our greatest joy is in transforming that imagination to reality. Now, as CEO of DO.II Designs, and with the help of my amazing and dedicated team, our vision continues to grow, and part of our long-term goal is dominance of the Nigerian interior design and furniture manufacturing space. The company's 10-year expansion plan includes, but isn't limited to, the opening of our ultra-modern factory and outlet, creating more job opportunities, establishing a network of DO.II franchises, and expansion beyond the Nigerian shores. A key factor in our expansion plans remains affordability. We must remain approachable. As it stands, DO.II Designs is the only Nigerian-owned interior design and furniture manufacturing company offering luxury services and furniture at affordable prices. In the next few months, starting with our big Black Friday sale this November, which has become a very successful annual shopping event, you'll be hearing a lot more from us as we are currently working on positioning DO.II as the best, most affordable design and furniture company in Nigeria.
Okay, so just in case you missed it, almost everything that you saw in those images were produced in Nigeria. Mrs. Ighodalo started from somewhere. She started like an SME. I dare to say to the women on this call that her parents did not fund this. Her husband did not fund this. They gave her other kinds of support, absolutely. Yeah. But she went through quite a lot to do this. And we're going to hear what more broadly what the DO.II does and also her journey along the way. Ifeyinwa.
So again, thank you everybody. So let me take you on a journey with the only one-stop shop, I hope we all got that, for all your interior design needs in Nigeria. Now my journey started 33 years ago with Design Options, which is amazingly how Mrs. Fasiro introduced me. Still, my husband still says, all you Design Options people. It's a journey of 33 years. So it's difficult to let go of. So DO.II is DO, Design Options, Ifeyinwa Ighodalo, II, which is Roman numeral 2, the second coming of Design Options. So it's fine. My clients still come in and call me Design Options. That started with my vision and my passion. My passion for, as I said earlier, beautiful interiors and my creativity. Now, what I did was to turn my passion into profit. I was raised to be practical. So I wasn't allowed to have a hobby, as it were. I knew I needed to put food on the table. I had responsibilities for my immediate family, for extended family members. So whatever I was doing, I needed to make it profitable. Now, Design Options was co-founded by myself and my partner 33 years ago. And we then evolved. We grew it into, all that is in my bio, I don't have to repeat that. And then we evolved into DO.II 8 years ago in 2012. So the business started, I hope it's legible also. The business started in 2012, the company was founded, and we commenced operations in our Ojota factory warehouse with a staff strength of only 12 people. Now, at the point in time when Design Options was liquidated and we needed to evolve into DO.II, there are certain key things that helped me through that transition. I think one person needs to mute. Relationships. My relationships with my clients and my relationships with several people, one of which I'm going to also mention here. She's the moderator. Yvonne held my hand through the process. She was my strategic advisor. That's what I called her then. And the advice she gave me, which I took from her, which will come up later, was very important to the transition. So again, Ifeyinwa, which is what I call her at home, I'd like to thank you. Okay. So relationships and goodwill. So I say to everyone, whenever I speak, the world had evolved to the point where we minimize the importance of people. So if nothing else, if we take nothing else from this webinar, apart from all the advice, the export advice, the business advice, the most important thing is people. It is people that will see you through no matter what it is you're going through. So we started from a staff strength. We now currently have a staff strength today of over 150 dedicated employees. And I say dedicated because it is very tough working in DO.II, and it was in Design Options. Hard work, resilience, tenacity, and consistency is what led us through that period. It was a very trying period. For almost 6 months, we had little or no income coming in. So those that stuck it out, most of them are still with us today. So this was 2012. In 2013, this is the advice Mrs. Fasiro gave me. We reopened in the 292C, which was the original Design Options premises. That was a strategic decision. So anybody, any furniture company who had reopened in that building, because there was 25 years history there, everybody would have come, anybody looking for furniture would automatically have walked in there. And even when they walked in, they just said, oh, Design Options, you've reopened. And we say, no, we're DO.II, but the rest is history. It was 300 square meters at the time in 2013. Now in 2014, we took the strategic decision to add turnkey remodeling as one of our service offerings. Design Options was traditionally a residential furniture manufacturer and retailer. With DO.II, we added, one of the first things we did was to add turnkey remodeling. So innovation is key. Pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, you must innovate. So we added turnkey remodeling because we found that the capacity, we had just restarted. So our capacity to produce the volume of furniture we needed was quite low. But by adding by diversifying, we were able to introduce a different stream of income, which was turnkey remodeling, which was actually quite profitable for us. In 2015, we established a 3-man advisory board, which now has been converted into a proper corporate board today. As well as introducing, we tended more towards the corporate market. Now there's a question, one of the questions I have reviewed is about how have we maintained, how have we continued to grow and survive during the different economic cycles. For us, we found very quickly, and we had discovered that actually in Design Options, so we just took that into DO.II. We found that working only, offering only services and products for the residential and the personal market it determined our income flow. So we decided to begin to create an offering for the corporate market, corporate residential, commercial, hospitality, and office. That was a decision we took in 2015. And again, today, we're reaping the benefits. In 2017, we did, I don't know, okay, you can see all the milestones we achieved in 2017. It has been difficult to retain a good head of HR. That was a big thing for us. Then in 2017, one of the bigger things we did also was we started the DO.II Big Black Friday sales. And with that one innovation, which has grown. We've had 2017, 2018, and 2019. It has become, you saw bits of it on the video. With that one event, we sort of established ourselves as leaders in the furniture retail market in our industry. We created greater awareness of the company and its products. We increased our customer loyalty. So some people will come to us in February and say, when is your big Black Friday? I mean, Black Friday is on a particular date in November every year. So when you come in February and say, when is your big Black Friday sales? Obviously, it's going to be in November on Black Friday. So that has been very good. We've created a lot of reach with that. In 2019, there were several things we did. That was a very pivotal year for us. And as it were, it's kind of prepared us for 2020. We opened our 1,300 square meter flagship store, which you saw in the video. But one of the more important things we did was training. Self-development is key in this journey. And I registered as the leader of the organization for the Seed Transformation Program. Why I chose the Seed Transformation Program over all the other programs I could have attended or courses was because it not only trained me, but it also, they come home to train you and your entire management team and middle level management team and develop them on how to run the organization. So today I am no longer running the organization on my own. I have a lot of help and support based on that decision. The other thing we did was to introduce the Akerele brand, which was launched to target the younger demographic customer segment. And we have, before then and since then, embarked on a lot of product refinement, on a product refinement strategy with the use of technological advances in our industry. And with the introduction of these new designs, we're hoping, which are lighter and more contemporary, we are hoping to appeal more strongly to the younger generation and capture a greater share of new markets, because they will control, like Mr. Segun said, Mr. Awolowo said, they will control the future. This year, 2020, nobody expected it. Everything that's going on now, nobody expected it. But before 2020, we had started working on redesigning our website. So during the lockdown, one of the things we focused on was to work on to redesign our website completely to ensure that it showcases our entire product and service offering, and we're making it fully e-commerce compliant. We also worked on, before the lockdown, we worked on innovations and strategies which ensured that people could work from home effectively. And so that is, very briefly, that is where we are today. So you can come in and shop where we reopen, but if you don't want to, you can actually go onto our website. There's a chat feature, and you can interact with us, and you can place your orders online. A lot of our work, this is the interior design and the furniture aspect of it, but the manufacturing, we still have to come to work to manufacture. So the factory is fully open, but what we did was we redesigned the manufacturing spaces to allow for better social distancing features, and we are very, very strict on our protocols, on our COVID-19 protocols. So that in a nutshell is design option.
Thank you very much for that interesting talk on DO.II. And so we've had the journey that has gone from someone who has continued to basically reassess the market through all kinds of challenges and trials, changing her client base, changing her product offering, and even changing, there are many things that she didn't say, because this is a very long conversation, but even at that time, some of the things that she has today, like a digital business, a business that has an online store, basically, that you can shop and interact on, were not there. These are all things that evolved over time. The founder herself, by the way, she is 60, went back to school. Went back to school to fulfill her dream of dominating the interior design place in Nigeria and perhaps in Africa. So it's all about us continually thinking about how we reinvent ourselves. We're going to hear now from the formidable Odio Mimonet. Again, I get that name because it's really Odio Oseni is her real name, but I guess her brand has overtaken herself. So as I said, this is a visual session for us. We're going to show you When we say she's a formidable designer, we're going to show you what we mean by that. So we're going to have a short clip, and then we'll hear from Odio Oseni about how she's come along this journey.
Mimonet started 24 years ago, okay? When I was 15, as a kid, I always knew I'm not 15, so don't add 15 to 24, that's not my age. But when I was 15, I always knew I wanted to be a designer. And so I had to get the skills for it. I mean, as a kid, I was that creative kid, so I always knew that this is what I wanted to do. I went to Yaba Tech, and then further went to London College of Fashion. My greatest love was art, fine art itself, and hence where my inspiration came from, Claude Monet being one of the Impressionist artists. So hence me, and then Monet, that's the back end of Claude Monet, part of it. Next line, our love for couture was on the next slide. It started with me wanting to make women feel as beautiful as art, and make it into wearable art. And so you can see that in our collection, where we try and push the bar a bit, because we're trying to make it, you have a piece of something that you can treasure. And of course, we wanted to put a lot of time into it, which took us into luxury, because we wanted it to be like you were having a wall hanging on in your room, or in your wardrobe, or in your cupboard. Yes. And of course, we're an African inspired brand. Yes. Our African inspiration, can you hear me? Because we're an African inspired brand, Africa was very entwined into it. Now, once we started the couture, we moved on to ready to wear. And our ready to wear came about because the first need was to make a woman look beautiful, and that most women that came in for something that they wanted. Now, ready to wear, because the fashion world now was fast evolving, and we could see that people wanted immediate gratification. They wanted things now, okay? So we had to put some art, we had to set aside a new brand and start making clothes that you can see and pick, which is like a wearable art ready to pick up. And we tapped into the needs, it says here, we tapped into the needs of the generation seeking instant gratification. Not just instant gratification, fashion itself was fast evolving, it's very fast. And fashion is fast now. So that has enabled us to reach more clients and a wider range, you know. And of course, you didn't have to come in, because, I mean, it was ready there for you. Next slide. We also have, then we started off, I'll tell you how I started. I started off in my house, in the boys' quarters. And we started off in 1995 with maybe just 3 members of staff. And 2 years later, we moved into my Sanusi Papua, which was my, the studio. Because we now had to have a place where we could present what we had for people. And the great thing about that was I took my time. You had 1.5 years of which you had to build your client base or somewhat of a client base. And then people could now come straight to your office. So of course, having a studio was an involvement because you weren't starting, people weren't coming to your homes anymore, your home anymore. Then after that, we moved to, next slide, please. After present show, yeah, factory to runway. After that, we now moved into a bigger factory. Our bigger factory in Aja, we now, instead of from having a small house and small factory, we now moved to a bigger factory, which now had about 40 or so people. And which now had about 40 or so people, and three floors and everything. So you can now have automation. You had separation of duties rather than everybody being cramped in one space. Now, from there, we now started to do all our runways and things, you know, and we started doing all our runways and things, and that was where we started. Now, going back, I don't know if I have another one. In those days when we started, my first runway show, maybe we do one show in 2 years or one show in 2.5 years. Now, where we are now, we're currently doing 2 shows a year, something like that, you know. And in those days, you started with a small capsule collection of maybe 12 designs. Now you probably do anything between 30 to 40 designs in one runway show. Yeah, most runway shows now most shows now, as fashion has it now, fashion will probably be doing shows of twice a year, sometimes thrice a year, sometimes 4 times a year, depends on the fashion calendar now, okay? So that's fashion and factory to runway. With our 40 members of staff, you say 40 direct members of staff. On indirect members of staff, you probably have, give or take, about 60, because you have people that you have contract staff, yes, 20 or 30 more. When you have fashion shows and stuff, you have more people that you carry on. Okay, next would be after factory and runway, yes, the family within our team. Now, OM here is Odio Mimonet. We understand the value of each individual's contribution. And so I don't know what's going on here. Shut the door. Understand the value of each individual's contribution here with our team and growing that. You know, you now know each person, and you can, when you build your family, because now they've been with you for too many years, you are not, a lot of years, you're not having them as staff anymore. You are now staff within our family, yeah? And during these times, now this COVID time especially, it's been crazier because we've now had to, you know, power mora, I don't know how to say it in English, but you know, you've had to pull everybody together because you don't just have a team, you have a family. You have a family within your team. We're used to, and then now with our so-called growth, we've also had to still infuse that togetherness, which is totally necessary for the kind of SME business we have, because, you know, you are their mother, you are their social psyche, you are everything to your team members. So you have to grow them. There has to be that love, and that's the only way they would stand and adapt with you, even in now that in these current situations that we are in. Let's see, is that our last one? Is that the last slide, family within our team? Do I have one more?
We're going to have to wrap up, Odio, so we can go into some of the questions that we have.
Yeah, sure. Okay, where we are now, we have continued to cater to the world, and we know right now we've continued to cater to the world. We're much bigger. We've done a lot of international shows. We've done a lot of international. We've had a lot of international. What's the word now? Experience. We train a lot of staff. We teach. I've had to bring foreign people from abroad to teach my staff and teach other people as well. And we're providing sustainable clothing for our customers. And we're also still maintaining a huge level of luxury. I didn't really talk too much about luxury. I just started off by talking about where we started and where we are now. What are we doing to adapt to COVID? I guess that will come in the questions, but we're developing huge different product lines to be able to reach our different sectors. What do we have? We now have a ready-to-wear sector. We have Mimi, which is another product line which we started, which is more for younger people. We also have the older people sector, which is like voyage. I don't think you say older people, but we're meeting different product lines. And I think that's where we are. Let me wrap that up by saying that because fashion is self-expressive and it's a creative, and we're also in the domain of creativeness, there's so many ways to adapt for this, in this situation. Fashion in itself is not consistent, and it has not been, and it's less consistent now because of all the problems that we've had now, both the riots, both COVID and everything else. But if you are determined to win through, we must always be very innovative. And we must, I guess that's the way forward. We must always be very innovative.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry about
Odio, thank you.
technical, my digital stuff, that kind of put me on the edge. Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. What we're going to do now is I'm going to ask Mr. Segun Awolowo your advice for SMEs, please, in these times. How do they go and step into their role of a socio-economic development in Nigeria and in Africa?
Yes, thank you very much, Yvonne. It was nice listening to my dear sister, Ifeyinwa, and congrats on your birthday again. Odio, nice to see you. I know, of course, of your brand. It's a very proud brand we have. Now, I'm so happy that we got, and I hope many of the MSMEs, SMEs are listening, and I'm going to beg Yvonne that we need to share more of these stories. You know, Ifeyinwa's story was amazing. You know, it's a story of hand-holding, mentorship, self-development. You know, it tells you that it's a long journey. And this is what I tell many of our MSMEs, SMEs, that they come up to us for support and everything. I said, look, be prepared for the long journey. You know, particularly manufacturing, which is really difficult, you know, and anybody who is employing labor and manufacturing in this country, you know, must be given a national honor, because it is really difficult. And we know it. We know it. This is not even COVID. Without COVID, it was difficult. Not to talk of, you know, having nothing to do. So it's a long journey, and I'm so happy. You know, you listen to Odio, and the funny part of it, when she said a generator broke down at this time, I shared to do it. This won't happen to a fashion designer in Europe or in America or even in China, you know, but you have to live with it. And that is, you have to work with it. I remember a conversation with Aliko Dangote many years back, and Aliko was telling us how he built a cement industry on just that 2,000 megawatts of power that Nigeria had. Maybe we've increased it a bit now to like 4,000, but it's crazy. And it built the biggest cement factory, you know, almost in the world. You know, just continuing, just plugging through. So my advice for SMEs, don't give up. You know, that you've learned from many of this. I hope Omoyemi will also come on and tell you some of the stories of how to build a brand. You know, look, with designer, well, DO.II now, and Mimonet, you know, these are big brands, and we must build these brands. We must create the brands that will dominate Africa and the world. And that's the next stage of Nigeria's story now. We must build these brands. You know, I was watching CNN the other day, and an advert on Dangote came on. Now, you must go back and watch that advert. You know, Nigeria was not mentioned. The whole advert, Dangote doing this, Dangote doing that. The word of our country was not mentioned. And I sat back and I looked at it and I said, wow, what has happened is that the Dangote brand has transcended Nigeria. That is what it meant. Now, he didn't need to mention Nigeria again. But yes, when you go look, oh, you know, oh, yes, it's from Nigeria. But his brand is out there. When you even look at Louis Vuitton, when we're looking at, okay, made in Nigeria, made in France, made in China, the LV bag you carry is not made in France anymore. It's made in China. It's made in Taiwan. You know, it's made, well, you know, of garments. They're made in Bangladesh, all over the world, but they're sold there. But they've created that brand that is French that you look for. So, look, SMEs, it's a long journey. It's a long journey. You have to be focused. You have to be dedicated. I tell many of my fashion designers, and I like a joke, but I tell them, look, get a partner, you know, that will handle the creative, the business end of your business, and you are the creative mind, because really you cannot do both, and that kills your business. So get a partner. I give them examples: Dolce and Gabbana. I give them Yves Saint Laurent and his partner, Tom Ford and his partner. I'm not I'm not advising on relationships there, but I'm just telling you, find a partner you trust that will handle the business end of your business. Look, if I told you about self-development, as brilliant and as accomplished as she was, she realized, look, I must continue to do this. And that's what I advocate, even for my staff here. Continuous self-development is the key. Don't wait for promotion exams to do that. So MSMEs, SMEs, it's a long journey, but you have to be focused. And you look for this kind of hand-holding mentorship that will help. And that, I think that is just the advice I have. Thank you, Yvonne.
Ighodalo, can you please, again, same question to you, very important.
Okay.
Advice for SMEs at this particular time during COVID. How do they reorganize and get out of the help or sort out their business and come out of these very trying times?
Okay, so I would start by saying thanks again, Segun, and thanks for recognizing the effort it has taken to get to where we are, as DO.II. I forgot to mention when I was talking about the company, with the liquidation of Design Options, the partnership was wound up, and I am now DO.II, hence the II. So it's Ifeyinwa Ighodalo, DO.II, with her strong and passionate and dedicated team of my team, my family, like Odio said. So the advice for SMEs, like Segun has already spoken about self-development. That goes without saying. I think this generation, we assume that SMEs are younger than we are, but we actually have older people who are just actually starting one business or the other, deciding to leave one line of one career and follow their passion. Innovation, I spoke about it. Odio has spoken about it. Just keeping ahead of the curve, as it were. You look at your customers, you sort of anticipate, you ask them, we have questionnaires, customer survey, but you also kind of anticipate in interacting with them what it is they want, what their needs will be before they actually even realize. That's one of the things they taught us in SEED. SEED is a Stanford SEED, the SEED transformation program, to anticipate your customers' needs. Before they know they want it, you're ready with it. So you sort of steer them there. So you remain relevant. Remaining relevant in your industry, just generally in the marketplace, is key. So we have a wide variety of products. We add on as we need to, and we take away as we don't need to. But specifically for the SMEs, keep an eye on your costs, renegotiate your loan. So you keep an eye on your operational costs, get them down to the barest minimum. But like Odio said, so I remember at the beginning of this COVID panic, not even the pandemic, there was talk about laying off staff and things like that. I'm happy to see that all of us on this panel are not looking at that as an option, because this is our family. But at the end of the day, we still have to find a way to minimize those costs so that it can take us much further down the line. Renegotiate, have a partner with your finance provider, your bank or whoever it may be. Have a partnership with them. It's not a transactional thing. So renegotiate your loans, have discussions with them. It's in their interest to keep your business afloat. Because if you go down, if we all go down, they go down with us. So have those conversations. I started having mine even before the lockdown. Take advantage of the intervention funds. There have been various webinars from DO.II to whatever, whoever is offering, have that conversation. Stay liquid. It's important you stay liquid. If you have no funds, you can't help anybody. Liquidity is king. This is disruptions. This is a disruption. We all know about disruption. In times of disruption, just keep going. The silver lining that comes with that is that there are opportunities for growth. It may not be in the line you already are. Some people have, I don't want to talk about fashion designers who are now producing masks and all sorts of things. Masks have now become a fashion item. So take advantage of the disruption and decide where your blue ocean is. Assess your current position, your current potential in the market in terms of relevance, in terms of the relevance of your goods and services. And if you need to pivot, start pivoting. Seek advice from the right places. Decide which webinars. There's something, WIMBIZ had a webinar recently, and they used the WIMBIZ acronym. They use WIMBIZ as an acronym. And the Z stood for zoom out. Don't over zoom. There's still life beyond the Zoom meetings and the webinars. Take critical decisions and steps to diversify or change your strategies where needed. So do not remain static. Before COVID, after COVID, during COVID, continue to be dynamic, innovate. Of course, above all, people, put safety measures in place for your staff, your customers, if you're going to be open, if there's going to be high touch in your business. That is key, because you fall ill or any members of your staff or your customers fall ill, it doesn't augur well for the business. Of course, leverage on technological interventions for your business operations. So I've spoken about that earlier. I don't need to elaborate. And then hone your skills. Sorry.
Yeah, carry on. I was
the
just
last
going to say
one
thing.
Okay, my last point is hone your skills, especially in the areas of technology, innovation, and critical thinking. And I think in telling my story and in listening to the rest of us, even Odio's story is very close to mine. It's just that she's in fashion and I'm in interiors and furniture and manufacturing. She's a manufacturer as well. It's just that she manufactures garments and
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. One of the things that I wanted to stress when we were preparing for this, we were talking about the fact that this economic situation we're in is part of a cycle. And so as terrible as it is now, it will get better. And one of the things that, and so staying the course through it all is very important. One of the things that we discussed before I go on to another participant is the fact that the fact that it, as chair of WIMBIZ, we were talking again, just wearing that hat that you wear, as well as being the founder of DO.II, just to highlight other sources of support and resources that SMEs have available. How does WIMBIZ engage with SMEs and what kind of support do they provide? If you can quickly take us through that, and then we'll go on to the other panelists.
Okay, so I'm the current chairman of the Board of Trustees of WIMBIZ. We have a chairperson for the Executive Council. Now, WIMBIZ launched a program way back in 2011 called WIMCAP. The WIM, of course, is WIMBIZ, and CAP is capital. And this was particularly geared towards female entrepreneurs. It was designed to equip female entrepreneurs with skills and tools for establishing systems and structures to enable the growth of their businesses. there was a lot of training involved in WIMCAP in order for them to be positioned themselves, trained and position themselves to attract investment and create jobs. Now, during my tenure, we've actually, before I talk about my tenure, over the last 15 years, we've been able to attract about 35 million naira worth of grants with which we have trained and sort of mentored women entrepreneurs who are members of WIMBIZ. Now, we've organized mentorship programs. We've mentorship, empowerment, and networking. We've provided mentorship, empowerment, and networking opportunities for over 40,000 female-owned businesses over the last, this is WIMBIZ, over the last 15 years. This is WIMBIZ and WIMCAP. Now, during my tenure, one of the things, because as an entrepreneur, obviously I'm very passionate about helping not just other entrepreneurs, but female entrepreneurs. So during my tenure, we're working towards widening and deepening that impact. There's already a great impact. And so apart from the training, which we've been doing very well so far, we're working on providing access to sustainable sources of funding for these businesses. We are not going to provide the funds, but once we're done with the training, we want to be able to sort of bring the fund, those who who can provide the investments, bring them in contact with the women who have successfully trained. So that's what we've done so far.
Odio, I want to ask you to add. So we have Omoyemi Akerele with us. Finally, she has 3 webinars today, and talk about successfully supporting the SME sector in spite of all the challenges she's had. She's managed to get in before we end, and after this, she's on to the next one. So I'm just going to skip protocol a minute and just have, because I really wanted Omoyemi in this session to read, because what she does is to look at the entire fashion ecosystem, and with little or nothing, started the journey of trying to take African fashion and make something big and extraordinary out of it. So Omoyemi, thank you very much for joining us today. And if you can just for about 5 or so minutes, just talk us through your perspectives on the fashion industry. Importantly, what is it that SMEs can do now to move out of the sector that they're in? And what's important for this conversation is to describe the breadth and length of your engagements in the fashion industry.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and I apologize profusely for taking so much time, and please bear with me if I'm a bit flustered because I've had one of those. I've had an interesting day. But I'm happy to be here. So can you hear me? I don't know how loud this is.
Yes, okay. We can hear you clearly. Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon, Edie. It's been an interesting journey for us at Saha South, primarily because I believe I'm one of those people who started like right from the bottom, so to speak. I started working my career. I apologize. I think I'm supposed to have a presentation, but I didn't quite get around to it. So I started out as a stylist, an assistant stylist in the industry, but I determined from leaving my legal career to do something that I was actually super passionate about. And no, I didn't set out to make impact. I just set out to, pretty much follow my passion and do what I really enjoy doing. And it sounds so typical these days when people talk about passion, but literally that's what I did. I, just went down that rabbit hole of something I enjoyed doing. And in the process, I've discovered a lot that's missing. And in the process, I've discovered a lot that's, yet to be done and all of that. So let me skip history and, just drop us right into 2020 and where we're at today. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. The role that we play in the sector is quite interesting. We rely significantly on partnerships to be able to achieve, the 5 prongs like the 5 things that we really do at SHF, which is provision of access to market for some of the brands that we work with. And I'm happy Mr. Awolowo is here today because we've done so much with the support and partnership of Nigeria Export Promotion Council, because they believe in that vision that, we need to do more beyond, what we normally do. Access to market to us is quite important, and it's not just access to market internationally. It's access to market, from a local angle, like with our immediate environment, and sometimes, to within other African countries and beyond. Another important aspect of what we do is providing opportunities for capacity building and skills development for employability. It wasn't something we set out to do. I tell everyone I don't know anything about apparel manufacturing, but it was born out of a passion and frustration that, a lot of people were trying to figure out how to produce and where to produce, and they couldn't quite figure it out. And there was a facility that I'd seen not too far from where I lived at the time. I don't know, somewhere off, anyway, in Ikoyi. And apparently it was a facility that had existed and owned by Nigeria Export Promotion Council. So we approached them, and thankfully, it was a meeting of minds and the vision aligned for them, which is for Mr. Awolowo, which is the promotion of the non-zero oil policy. But beyond that, to be able to ensure that people can produce in, large enough quantity for export. But before you do that, you sort of have to train the people and to sort of close that skills gap that already or currently exists, for a lot of apparel manufacturers today. And we moved in, and to date, we've been able to impact over 800 people with apparel manufacturing skills for employability. And how do we do that? It's through partnerships, it's through collaboration, because the courses are always through 2 people and 4 people. So through the support of Nigeria Export Promotion Council, who own the Human Capacity Development Center, and through partnerships with companies, range of companies and institutions, from Industrial Training Fund, Lagos State Employment Trust, so many people, just to be able to provide opportunities for that. And today, to bring all that work to somewhere to some sort of tangibility today. The major problem we're having is, the whole country is looking for people who can produce PPE that's locally made in Nigeria to, standardize quality, quantity, and, at the right time. And this is, currently a problem, but we've been able to tap into sort of like a pool, or our pool of people that we've trained over the years, to be able to, some of them to come back so that we can, work together to be able to address this problem. Third, one of the things we also do is discover new talent through our platform called, it's currently called Fashion Focus Today. In the past, it was, I think, Young Designer of the Year. And what we do pretty much is, through a process, scout for new talent and provide them with a platform to showcase. Over the years, we've tried to build that up to be able to do more. And about 2 years ago, we launched a Fashion Focus Fund for our Fashion Focus beneficiaries. It's not a lot of money. It's we started out with 5 million. It's now 10 million naira, and it's also with partnerships. I can't emphasize enough on the role partnerships and collaborations play. So with that grant, it is essentially a grant, even though a lot of people have accused us that, why make it a grant? It should be like a soft loan so that, they're responsible and they can return it back, and you have a, but that's conversation for another day. Yes, so we've been able to grow that, and we hope that we can do more, especially when it comes to nurturing them and actually getting like creative talent to be able to invest, work with them. Currently, our 5 are going through, this year's beneficiaries are going through a series of sessions with a consultant that's been kind enough to work with us. And they're pretty much looking at their collections, their lookbooks, and, it's just a series of things. And I think in another couple of weeks, we're going to start taking them through the DO.II startup school. And, with the subscriptions, they have access to anything that we want to discuss, like, and talk to them about, and eventually they gain access to this pool of funding. The 4th thing we do is advocacy. Probably because of my legal background, I believe in the power of talking, in the power of conversation to be able to make change, especially for a sector like ours. because I realized that over the years, a lot of practitioners and creative people, we're often in the habit of talking to each other, you know, and you can't really solve problems like that. You know, you have to bring the people you want to converse with, you have to bring them into a room to be able to create change. So I never get tired of talking. Like Mrs. Fasnero just said, I just got off a conversation. I'm going to have to hop up soon to jump into another one, because I believe significantly that it's the only way change can come. And not just talking, but to be able to follow through, you know, with action points, an action plan, who's doing this, chase up policymakers, chase up, you know, institutional investors, chase whoever we need to be able to, you know, sort of bring or create the change we want in the sector. I've left Lagos Fashion Week for last because it sounds like that's what a lot of people know.
I was just going to say.
So a lot of people know that, and that really came about. It's important that, you know, Lagos Fashion Week is seen as more than an event, because it's pretty much like a culmination of everything we do throughout the year. And, you know, when, so we see it as a showcase, we see it as a bringing together, we see it as a gathering, we see it as people, an opportunity for creative people every once in a year to come together under the same roof, show your collections, network, and, you know, hopefully make magic, but beyond that to try and, you know, sell. But what we've done differently is before Fashion Week, we've always tried to create that opportunity for access to market before Fashion Week. And that's the work we do with Nigerian Promotion Council. And I'm quite excited about this year, because for the first time, that engagement is going to be online. So it's going to be significantly cheaper for Nigerian Promotion Council, because we won't be traveling, you know, all be online and digital and all of that. But yeah, so that's us in a nutshell. What are SMEs supposed to be doing this season? I think the most important thing, one of the most important things right now is for people, for everyone, and we're doing that as well, to be able to stop and, you know, at the beginning of it, to be able to stop and take stock and ask yourself, who am I and what do I do? What is my business and how does it fit, you know, within the environment that I operate in today? You know, what is the relevance of my business? I mean, I remember at the start of the pandemic, you know, calling ED and saying, ED, you know, the factory has to operate, and ED had, you know, put out a shut down everything. I'm like, ED, we can't shut down. You know, I remember because I bugged him and I said, no, we can't do that. You know, this is the time and the season where we need to be out there to be able to respond quickly to what's going on. You know, we're able to convince some designers as well. Like, guys, listen, the reality is not a lot of people are buying today, but what are they buying? What is the need? So you have to do a needs assessment. What is the market saying today? What are people buying? People are buying lots of masks and PPE related items. People are buying essentials. What are essentials? You know, we have to realize that the Nigerian fashion industry is predominantly focused and based on occasion wear. But where are we going now? There's a pandemic. So how many people, I mean, okay, sorry, I dressed up last week and I was in my house, which was a bit odd, but I did. But, you know, but apart from that, you know, how many people will be buying on the same level that they were buying before? So the first thing I would ask is, you know, how do you create room and create space for yourself in today's market? You know, so are you a fashion designer? Are you a photographer? Are you a, you know, stylist? Are you a model? How do you, you know, take that step back and reassess your business? You know, who am I today and what do I want to do and how do I want to stay relevant in this market? You know, so once you're done with the needs assessments, I know I'm making it sound like it's really easy and we haven't even discovered the answer yet. What I just know, and that's something that I've always believed in and I've always been passionate about, is you never stop. You know, we're just going to keep going. We'll pause, go back to the drawing board to find out if where we're at today is where we want to be. But, you know, always go back, you know, is this in line with my vision? You know, what is our vision as a company? Well, because ours is already hinged on 5 key things. It's relatively, I don't want to use the word easy because it's not easy at all. It's relatively okay for us to go back to those 5 pillars and ask ourselves, so based on this, what are we supposed to be doing and how are we supposed to be responding to that? Some of our business, I mean, a part of our business has remained short this season. you know, we're supposed to launch something called Prison, which is a walk-in space for SMEs to pretty much come in, where you can, you know, there'll be workshops, capacity building, skills development, which isn't focused on the factories, that, you know, which isn't based on the actual making of garments, everything else, soft skills. But we haven't been able to do that. And a few people have approached us and said, oh, we want to take this online. You can use tech to do that. And I said, no, because I don't believe that that's what it's supposed to be. You know, so I'm not saying every aspect of what we hope to achieve is currently, we've been able to achieve it. But the point is, you know, to be able to evaluate what you need to do, to be able to take that next step. Secondly, I know that a lot of people are concerned about funding, which is key. Everyone is asking, where's the money? Show me the money. Show me the money, you know, and there's so many surveys flying around and we're all hustling to fill them out, you know. So that brings me to the second point. I mean, we've had a couple of sessions and I've had some people who've been able to say, listen, the most important thing now is for you to hold on to your money, you know, try as much as possible to hold on to the resources that you have, like, as opposed to, it's not necessarily maybe the time to expand as such, but, you know, what can you hold on to in terms of your cash flow? Cash flow is king, so that at least the business can keep going for now, you know, until you get to that point where you need to do more. And then, you know, that brings me to the third thing, and this is what I've preached since the start of the pandemic. It's time for us to do something that we often don't like to do as creative people or SMEs in Nigeria, which is partnerships, collaborate, co-creation, community, expand. You know, there's no way. This is the first time that I know. I mean, I've always known that, because I tell people I only do what I know how to do. The rest, I'm working with a group of people who are bringing in the skill, who are bringing in the technical expertise and, you know, doing that. But this season, we have to do that. We have to co-create, we have to collaborate and build our community. And I think together, if we're able to, you know, speak to institutional investors and speak to the people that we need to listen to us, to be able to get the other things that we consider really missing. I'm sure everyone is on the same page when we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about funding, when we talk about sourcing, access to, I mean, elastic. I'm looking at Mrs. Oseni and thinking about elastic and all the banter we've had back and forth with production this season. Elastic has been a nightmare. So sourcing is a problem, access to textiles, you know, all those things that just seem to want to cripple. You know, sometimes you're just so frustrated and you don't know what to do, you know. So how do we tackle all of these things that I only think can be done if come together? So I think I've used up my time.
Yeah, that's great. And even though we've overrun on the time that we've allotted for the panel, I'm going to just do a couple of things and then wrap up as quickly as we can. I do have one more question for each of you. So if the audience, if you can please bear with us, because I hope you agree that this has been very, very invaluable information. One thing Omoyemi said, which I'm going to pick up on, I wish I'd asked her to pitch for our next webinar, is actually looking at accessing COVID relief. And anyone who's thinking that I'm coming to tell them about where to find the CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria money, please don't join this panel. Don't join this panel, because we need to work with government in a very different way. They're doing what they can afford, and it's absolutely not enough. But that is not the only help that's out there. So it's a very broad conversation. We have people from different sectors who are, and we're coming with out of the box ways. I hope you see the example of NEPC today, where if you think hard about how you're positioning your product and thinking about selling it online, for example, or exporting it, you do need to be engaging with the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Next week, we will be talking about other areas where you can get relief that will help you sort out your business, more financial relief. But it's not about handouts. So anyone who's looking for handouts, please, if you're ready to work and engage, please join us next week. I'm going to ask Odio a question that people on the panel are asking, or rather in the audience are asking. You know, what is your perspective about what SMEs in fashion in particular can do, and where do you see the opportunities that they can go into?
Okay. Omoyemi said some of that actually. SMEs in fashion right now, because we have, can you hear me, right? Right now,
yes,
because we have access, from my perspective, because we have access to manufacturing right now, we can, an easy one would be to provide COVID-related materials right now. But secondly, would be to now think of other product lines that would be necessary for your clients and for your consumer base. Because right now, as she said, what we said, nobody's going out. So what are the other things? What are the other opportunities that you will have? You have to look at your clients and look at things. Our lifestyles are changing. We're staying more at home. So there'll be things like that that SMEs will be able to pitch in, you know, but more especially also because of what happened in China and everything starting from China, this COVID-19, SMEs have the opportunity now to look within. We can integrate backwards. So the things that, instead of looking for how to produce things abroad and bring them here, let's now look here. Let's look at our value chain. Let's look at, is it our cotton industry? Is it your printing? Is it the zip set? Everything that they've made outside. Oh yeah, let's try and see what we can do here. So that's my advice to us. Let's look within. Let's be very honest with ourselves and very brutal, and let's take small steps. But let's integrate backwards, because we can't keep, I mean, $1 now is what? 450, 500. I mean, konishera after a while. So if we can't buy it, what are we going to do? We have to look within. And I think that would be my greatest advice to us SMEs. Let's look within, let's integrate backwards, let's start. You know, if we're going to make let's lift the bar, let's raise the bar. If we're going to make zip.
Everyone on this call has talked about collaboration, and you know, at the risk of not sounding original, because it's so important. So we have a question from Stella, who's also just saying, how do you collaborate in the fashion space? Importantly, importantly, she's saying, and what do you do to ensure everyone gets maximum benefits in the partnerships? I'm going to throw that question to Mrs. Ighodalo in the first instance, and then to Mrs. Akerele, to say, just very quickly, what would be the one or two things that you would say to someone to ensure that they are less afraid of collaboration, which is absolutely key, and how do they protect themselves? You have to unmute.
I'm so sorry, I just saw that. I thought I was unmuted. Okay, so I have always said, in my industry, in my industry, we have an association. Our association is the Interior Designers Association of Nigeria. And I have been preaching collaboration in our association for many, many years. You find that, I'm going to answer the question real quick, but you find that from doing maybe kitchens today, the next thing, somebody is wanting to produce furniture and they don't have the skills or the whole orientation for that. So if we all stay, you work to your strengths. I've tried to remain as focused as possible and work to your strengths, and then engage, partner, collaborate with others who are doing what you don't do. And then there's enough. I mean, this is Nigeria. People from abroad are coming here to come and participate in our 200 million people and the markets that is here. So we need to collaborate. Now, in protecting yourself, I would say that it depends on the level of collaboration. In my industry, from DO.II particularly, we manufacture furniture, we make curtains. There's some things we don't do. We don't import our own blinds. So we can collaborate with others who bring in, who actually are experts in the window blind business and in other businesses. So that's a more loose collaboration. But when you actually have to go into a deeper level of collaboration, we have lawyers. So you have to have, it's always safer to have a contract, even with subcontractors. We actually draw up contracts that stipulate what will happen if you default, on timelines, on quality and all of that. Do your due diligence. And so when you go into this collaboration or partnership, because for me, they're two, the partnerships are on a higher level, just do your research, know who you're partnering with, I mean, I wouldn't just go online. I mean, everything is available online. Yes, I wouldn't just go online or on Instagram and just pick somebody and then send X amount of money and say, I'm in a partnership. We always try to do our due diligence. We must have a physical address. As much as possible, we visit that address. And we've managed to actually maintain, so our collaborators have actually become our partners. So as we grow, they grow with us. I don't know if I'm answering.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Yes, I mean, Omoyemi, do you have anything to add to that? Because you're another big advocate of collaboration.
Unmute. She needs to unmute. I think somebody.
I apologize.
Okay.
So I must confess that it's not a process that I think is that easy, and I understand why quite a lot of people are hesitant to opt for that approach, because you have to trust. There's so many things, professionalism, brand association. There's so much that goes into it that you need to sort of look out for. But I mean, what we've always done is, listen, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? You won't do what you're supposed to do because you technically speaking can't do it on your own, and you need to be able to work with people. So the worst thing that can happen is, it's a bad experience. But the worst thing that can happen is you not achieving that goal because you really can't do it alone. So for us, with that as sort of like the foundation, yes, there was a gaping hole in the sector. But I didn't have money to put an apparel manufacturing company together. The funding for it would probably have taken us years to be able to do that. But in thinking about strategic partnerships, who can we partner with? Who can trust us with this vision? Who can entrust us to be able to do this? And that's it. And sometimes you'll be amazed at what life can throw your way the minute you're open. Like, oh, okay, I can't do this alone, but I'm hoping that this can happen. And then the way we found out was, so I remember talking to my husband and saying, oh, wow, this facility, but it has NEPC written on it. And it's like, NEPC, are you sure? Because I walked there, I would go back and forth to that facility, like, how can this place be empty and nothing is happening, nothing is going on there? Reached out to the people who were supposedly managing it. And then we discovered that it was NEPC and it was Mr. Awolowo. And that's how life works. If we thought, oh, and that's giving just one example.
I think we've lost Omoyemi. So what I'm going to ask while we're waiting for her to come back is, let's try and round this out now. So I think one of the things that we've heard, Omoyemi, are you back?
She was here.
Hello?
She's been here. We could hear her.
Oh, fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now
so,
I can.
I mean, I guess it's always going to be what I'm trying to say, it's always going to be a risk. You're always going to, but what you're going to lose would be you not gaining or not being able to achieve your goal, and sometimes you have to figure out what is more important. And for me, to be able to check that is like, listen, you can do this because you're partnering with that person and you can move on. So I deal with my emotions, deal with my ego, deal with everything else behind the scenes, but that's one thing off my to-do list. And that's what I think is the best way. And I'm not saying it's the easiest thing to do, and bringing it home to collaborating with my peers as well, not just organizations, institutions like that who are more willing to take a risk, or who you might find easier to approach. Even with our peers, there's some that haven't worked out and it's fine. And there's some that, today, I mean, Mrs. Oseni and I, we know how we flow. Sorry, and there's so many people that we do work together because we have to do it together, and it's easier that way. So I guess it's a risk we all have to take.
Yeah, and just to echo what Omoyemi was saying, there is no way we can achieve the kind of economic growth that we must achieve to achieve our potential if we don't collaborate. And this is something that the people that you see on this call who have done phenomenal things have done. One of the key pillars of what they've worked on is collaboration, and just thinking beyond where we are now and just accepting that this too shall pass, and what shall we do in its stead. One last word to SMEs. I'm going to start with Mr. Awolowo. Segun, please, can you tell us one last word for SMEs?
Yes, thank you, and nice to see you, Omoyemi. again, you didn't say so much about the Lagos Fashion Week, which is really phenomenal. It's big. It's now on the international fashion calendar all over the world, not only in Africa. And we hope we're going to be able to collaborate with Omoyemi, because we're going to Expo 2020 in Dubai to have the Lagos Fashion Week there. And we're also looking at even the International Inter-Africa Trade Fair in Kigali for the Lagos Fashion Week. You know, I tell Omoyemi, look, what you have done, you've built that brand again, you know, Lagos Fashion Week. And really, if I were governor of Lagos State, I'll be paying you for that. I will have a special budget to pay you for using Lagos, because you could as well call it Omoyemi Fashion Week and we will still be there. Yeah. Do you understand? And this is the kind of collaboration we're talking about. We also do a lot with WIMBIZ and of course, all our fashion designers there. Is the kind of collaboration that got Yvonne and myself talking. And I've had the pleasure of dragging her out of fora in America, in London, and grabbing her, talking to her, and finally bringing her even to my office to see this is what NEPC does. And she's saying, oh, you're doing all this for women, you're doing all this training. Oh, how can we get involved? And that is very important. I see all over the questions on the attendees. Everybody's asking, what can this kind of collaborations bring? And look, like Omoyemi said, you just have to have your mind open, you know, have your mind open, seek it at all times. And even though Yvonne said, look, we're not here asking government for money or like COVID relief or anything. Yes, we must ask them to do more. We must ask for more money. Absolutely. And the Vice President is going to be bringing out the economic sustainability report very soon. Privy to it, there are so many things going to happen. Government will have to bring out a lot of money to help SMEs, and that's its focus. I told you before this panel, I was talking on another webinar with the Vice President who are commissioning a 200,000 yam storage. Even yam is not as sexy as the fashion that we're in the manufacturing industry we're discussing here, but it's still livelihood for so many people, et cetera, et cetera. So government has seen it now. And I tell you, let me just tell SMEs and MSMEs, I started my presentation with that quote that 85% of jobs that are going to be in 2030 have not been creative yet. And that is innovation, and that's disruption. You know, before, I thought disruption was a bad word, but I see it in industry now. You must disrupt. And we had somebody that came to NEPC 2 years ago, and it was to disrupt our whole system. And then it was crazy, but look at it now. Have we not been disrupted?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, by COVID. And so you just have to see. We got an opportunity we've been trying cargo, you know.
Ask you to please round up.
Oh, okay. Let me just tell you this good news about cargo exporting that has come up now, you know, in the midst of this COVID. British Airways, KLM, they are the ones coming to us that, look, let us help your exporters take this food stuff. We had that from Dubai. They wanted to send their planes. They want mangoes. They want so many things. And they wanted to cargo it. This is not shipping anymore. This is direct cargo, free on board. And so they can get it. So a lot is happening. The future is bright. I'm a perennial optimist. My cup is always half full. So good luck to everybody.
Thank you so much. Very quick last word from Odio, Omoyemi, and Ifeyinwa in that order, please. Odio, very quick last word.
Yeah, very quick last word. Okay. Well, three immediate things we all have to remember: sustainability, innovation, and digitalization. So digitalization will allow us to reach everybody, reach a higher target and a wider market. Innovation, because you have to keep thinking. You just have to keep thinking. Keep evolving. We have so many questions, but as you evolve, you just keep thinking. And sustainability, because it has to be things that are accessible for us. It has to be things that we can maintain. So if it's in your home ground, wherever, just be sustainable. And sustainable doesn't mean you have to be organic all the time. No, sustainable, what you have access to and what we can grow, what you can scale. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you very much. Omoyemi, quick last word, please, before we move on to Ms. Ighodalo.
Unmute. She needs to unmute.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I guess we're in an interesting season. So I'm just going to echo what a lot of people that we've invited to speak on our sessions have said, and I've really learned from, and I've held into it. Someone said the most important thing to do this season is to be agile, to be able to react quickly to what's happening around us. Secondly, is to be able to be adaptable. So as quickly as soon as you're able to react to what's happening around you, then you can incorporate and adapt some of the new, some of the elements of the new into and bring it into the business you're doing today. Beyond that, of course, people will say innovate and pivot, and so those words are beginning to give me a headache and scare me. It's okay to move. Innovate or die, innovate. But anyway, so please remember that it's also important to take care of our mental health this season. Take it easy, take it one day at a time. It's okay, honestly. The most important thing is we're all going to come out stronger at the end of it all. And if at all you feel, if you're feeling anyhow, please pick up the phone and reach out to someone and speak to them. A problem shared is a problem solved. Is that how it goes? Yeah. So, and sometimes that's what you need, someone to let you know that you're not alone. I've spoken to people, a lot of people that you think are cruising through life and, in the industry, and I'm not even talking about just Nigeria, beyond, and people are struggling. Everybody's business is affected. So once we have that at the back of our minds, you're able to be less, you can be gentle with yourself and then ask yourself, so what can I do to get out of this point? So all the best, guys, we're in this together.
Wonderful. And then, Ifeyinwa, last but not least, last word from you.
Okay. So basically, everybody has done my work for me. The same advice. Everybody who's attended this has seen that it's the same advice, the same strategy. Like Omoyemi says, if the innovate, the pivot, the all of that. There's so many new COVID buzzwords. The same strategies have been advised. Resilience is what gets us through. Resilience. So all the advice has cut across all the panelists. But what I'm going to add to that, which I had said a little bit about and Odio had said earlier, is people. People. Yeah. Amazingly, what I miss most, I don't miss your WIMBIZ, I'm sorry, I'm fashion people. I don't miss it at all. And everybody knows that I know how to dress up. Yeah. But what I miss most about COVID is the hugs. I see people I love and I can't hug them. I can't hug the little children. So if COVID has taught us and nothing else, it's the value of people. Some of us already know that, but it has re-emphasized it. One of the things I think Omoyemi also mentioned, rest, refresh, because what I did was rest, refresh with my team, and then we reset. So even the strategies we were already working on, we dropped them. We rested, we refreshed, and then you come out of it fresh. So we're going to come out of this stronger. We're going to come out of this more caring. We're already caring as a people, and we're going to appreciate this hugging, this value, this people. There's a lot more. So I believe that God sent this for whatever reason. I know we don't wish evil on anybody, but there's a reason for everything, and we're going to come out of this more caring and more loving.
Thank you so much to our brilliant audience, who most of them have stayed right through to the very end. I cannot thank the panelists enough for your incredible insights and for the information that you've shared. This session is being recorded. The presentations that we saw here and the one that Omoyemi is going to give us will be in our follow-up pack. One of the things, Omoyemi, I must tell you, one of the attendees said, Omoyemi, now I finally know what you do.
I saw that.
So on that note, I'm going to end and thank you all for this really formidable panel, and thank you so much. And SME, see you soon. We're going to get through this.
And on behalf of everybody else, we say thank you to Yvonne and Adara. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Adara.
We're going nowhere. We're going to get through this one. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.